Welcome, everyone. Welcome to our next webinar in our Nutrigenomix webinar series. My name is Bibiana García-Bailo, and I am the Director of Research and Development for Nutrigenomix. And it's a pleasure to have you all here today. Thanks for taking time out of your day to listen to our webinar on personalized nutrition for skin health. Now, as you will see, there's a Q&A option for you to put in your questions as I go through the presentation. There are members of my team who will be able to answer questions throughout the presentation as well. And of course, at the end, we'll have a few minutes to answer any other questions as well. Okie dokie. So the first thing I want to do is to let you know that our next webinar is happening in July, precisely on July 8th, and we are going to talk about pharmacogenetics testing. Nutrigenomix does have a pharmacogenetics test. If you are new to our webinar series, welcome to the first one that you're able to attend. These are something that we've been trying to do somewhat regularly since essentially the pandemic started. And we record these and make them available under the resources part of your dashboard, of your practitioner dashboard. So that if you're not able to watch the whole webinar today, or if you want to go back and watch some of the older ones, you can do so on our website. And I'll show you a slide towards the end of the presentation that directs you more towards the part of the website where you would be able to view the presentations. All right, so today's topic, skin health and personalized nutrition for skin health. We figured this was a timely topic given the fact that summer is upon us in a lot of the world, at least in the Northern Hemisphere. And it seems like, well, both the fact that the weather is getting warmer and COVID restrictions seem to be lifting in a lot of the world is making a lot of us want to spend more time outside, whether that be at the beach, in the forest somewhere, or perhaps in your garden or playing outdoor sports. Many of us are spending more time outdoors in the summer. And as a consequence, we are exposing our skin to the sunlight more so than we do during the rest of the year. So skin health and skin care perhaps become more top of mind come the summertime. So we figured this was a good opportunity for us to talk to you about our skin health test for personalized nutrition for skin health. And by the way, for those of you who are curious about where this photo came from, I think this is pre-COVID. It certainly doesn't look like people are social distancing, but this is one of the more popular urban beaches in Spain, where I'm from. In particular, this beach is in Barcelona, in the city of Barcelona. Okay, so, right, I think it's pretty clear that most of us are pretty aware of skin health in this day and age, especially in the summer. And certainly the popular press does a good service of putting out articles raising awareness of issues around skin health. And these are just a couple of examples, one from the Wall Street Journal a couple of years ago, and then another one from the New York Times that just came out last week or the week before, I believe. These types of articles from the popular press obviously talk about the benefits of caring for one's skin for overall health, as well as for prevention of skin cancer risk. Now, it's great that the popular press is putting out these messages for increased awareness of skincare and skin health. But I think a very sobering statistic is this one that I am showing you at the bottom left of this slide. This comes from the American Academy of Dermatology. And they recently conducted a survey where they identified about 2/3 of Americans who say that they have gotten a sunburn in their life that was so bad that they were painfully uncomfortable and couldn't really wear clothes. So 2/3 of the American population is in my opinion, a really large percentage of the population, considering the dangers of excess sun exposure and sunburns. So clearly, it's important to continue to promote skincare and skin health awareness. And frankly, not just for skin cancer, but for other aspects of skin health that are of paramount importance to overall health as well. As I mentioned, I think awareness of the necessity to take care of one's skins really should go beyond this general idea, that understanding that we all have today, that that skin cancer is a really terrible thing, that we should try to avoid it. And there are measures that we can take, like applying sunscreens, like staying away from the sun during the peak of the day, etc. But really, skin is actually our largest organ. And as such, it actually takes up about 10 to 15% of a person's body weight. So I think this right away gives you an idea of the importance of, intuitively gives you an idea of the importance of skin to overall health. Essentially, skin is our first line of defense against the outside world. It's what separates our internal bodies from the external milieu, with all of the environmental stressors that are a part of it. It controls our hydration levels. It insulates us from extremes of temperature. It allows us to sense both painful and sharp sensations, as well as excess heat, so that we can move away from those stimuli that tend to be dangerous. And it also produces vitamin D, which is, as you know, not just a vitamin, but really a hormone that has a myriad of beneficial health effects on our body's physiology. So clearly, taking care of one's skin and ensuring maximum skin health is important, not just for preventing skin cancer, but just for ensuring overall health and quality of life. Now, not surprisingly, as I'm sure many of you are aware, there's a really booming market for skincare products. And just last week, a report came out that estimated the market size of the skincare products globally to be about $423 billion this past year in 2020. And this number is projected to increase to nearly $560 billion by 2026. So clearly, there's a lot of interest in products for caring for one's skin and for maximizing skin health. And interestingly, a couple of months ago, I came across this article that, it was just a popular article that rated the top skincare trends of 2021. And among the top 10 trends were both personalization of healthcare, as well as personalization of skincare, rather, as well as dietary supplements for skincare and skin health. And one could think of the trend revolving around personalization of skincare as perhaps taking into account genetic differences among individuals or across individuals that might affect how their skin reacts to the same stimuli. And then on the other side, or as well, we could think of the trend reflecting dietary supplements as being representative of this idea that nutrients ingested orally might be beneficial for skin, which is a little bit different from the topical application of nutrients, various creams that contain antioxidant, vitamins, et cetera. This is a little bit different. This is talking about specifically consuming these nutrients through the diet. So here at Nutrigenomix, as you know, we are very interested in how genes and diet interact to affect skin health, general health, performance, etc. So it was very interesting to me to see that these two trends are something that is being recognized by the overall industry around skincare and skin health products. The question really is, okay, so these trends exist, but really what is the evidence behind them? Or in other words, and perhaps framing it more from the standpoint of what we are interested in, do genetic variation and diet impact skin health, and what is the scientific evidence for making potential claims around genetics and diet affecting skin health. So I'm going to share with you some slides that show results of studies in this area over the next few minutes. So now there's been a number of studies that have looked at the contribution of both genetics and the environment to skin health, and specifically skin aging. And this was one of the earliest studies to look specifically at the contribution of both of these to skin pattern deterioration, or in other words, skin aging. Now, this study came out of Australia, and it was carried out in identical twins of different age groups. So they looked at children, adolescents, and adults. And what this group found was that in children, genetics explains about 85% of the specific biomarkers that are associated with skin aging. So really pretty high contribution of genetics to skin aging in children. But by the time people reach adolescence, that number has decreased to about 70%. So the genetic contribution to skin aging is a little bit smaller there. And then by the time that people reach adulthood, there seems to be an even smaller contribution of genetics to skin aging patterns, with about 60% being the amount of variation across individuals that is explained by genetics. So I think the findings of the study suggest that yes, genetics does play an important role, and genetic variation does help to explain why some people's skin ages faster than others. But I think what's important to point out here is that the decrease in the percentage of that variation that is explained by genetics over a person's life really suggests that there is also an important role for the environment in helping to influence how a person's skin will age. And diet, of course, is an important environmental exposure that we are all really exposed to every day of our lives. Now, there have been more recently studies that have really started to delve into the relationship between diet and the health of our skin. And there's a nice summary review that was published in Nature in 2018, so about 3 years ago, that really summarizes some of the early studies that started to look at the relationship between skin and skin aging and skin health. So this is a good resource for you to read, and if you're interested in some of the foundational concepts in this area. And certainly, the paper suggested that at the time there was already some evidence to suggest that dietary intake of certain nutrients might affect certain areas of a person's skin health. Now, there's been more research since that paper was published. And these are just 3 snapshots of different recent articles that have come out in just the last couple of years that I think provide a good overview of our understanding of the influence of diet on skin health and aging today. Now, the top snapshot comes from a PDF of a paper that was published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition back in 2020. And this was an observational study of adults of European descent. And I believe they had about a sample size of about 2,500 individuals. And what these authors did was to measure the dietary intake of advanced glycation end products by participants of the study. We'll talk more about advanced glycation end products, or AGEs, later in the presentation, but just to give you a brief summary of what they do, these are sugars that attach to various molecules in the body, including proteins. And in the context of skin, they will attach to collagen and other structural proteins in the skin, and they can make them more brittle and prone to breakage, so that there's perhaps more proneness to wrinkling and skin sagginess. So in any case, what these authors did was to measure the dietary intake of these advanced glycation end products, or AGEs, and examine its association with presence of AGEs in the skin a few months or years later. And what they found was that individuals who consume the most AGEs from the diet tended to have higher levels of skin AGEs as well, which might be suggestive of a propensity for accelerated skin aging. If you're wondering about what dietary sources of AGEs there are, some of the, they're really pretty widespread in both whole as well as processed foods, but some of the foods that tend to be the biggest culprits, or that tend to contain the most AGEs, are foods that are cooked at high temperatures, or perhaps foods that are brown, so barbecued or grilled meats, etc. So that was an interesting finding. And then another article that was published even more recently this year in the Journal of Investigative Dermatology was actually a cohort study that again took place in individuals of primarily European descent, but this time in Australia. So this study lasted 15 years, and they recruited nearly 800 adults. And they examined the antioxidant capacity from the diet, essentially how many antioxidants these individuals were consuming from their diet, and whether this eventually led to signs of skin aging. And what these authors found that was quite compelling was that those individuals who consumed the least amount of antioxidants from their diet had more wrinkles and more skin pigmentation suggestive of skin aging than those who consume the most antioxidants 15 years later. So again, really underscoring that a dietary intake can potentially affect the appearance of the skin. And last but not least, there's been a couple of randomized controlled trials, and this is just one of them that I will show you as an example, that have looked at the effects of providing almonds, which are a very rich source of vitamin E, which, as you know, is a very potent antioxidant, on facial wrinkles, as well as pigmentation and other biomarkers of skin aging. And this was a relatively small study of about 56 women that was carried out in the US. These were postmenopausal women. But nonetheless, I think it reflects the findings of a couple of other RCTs that are out there as well, also looking at almond consumption and skin aging. And what these authors found was that women who consume almonds for 24 weeks, and this was the equivalent of an almond snack that was about 20% of their total energy intake for the day. These women had less wrinkles, or less severe wrinkles, and less skin pigmentation at the end of the 24 weeks than women who consumed a controlled snack that was equivalent in calories to the almonds, but obviously did not contain the goodies, if you will, that almonds have in them, including, of course, vitamin E. So again, an interesting, small yet compelling study about the potential effects of dietary factors on skin health and skin aging. Now, all the way back in 2014, there was already an interest in the potential for providing personalized, customized recommendations for individuals based on their genotype to essentially provide them with tailored health skincare plans to prevent skin aging. And this paper from all the way back in 2014 is a good example of this interest. And these authors proposed the potential for, again, being able to develop personalized recommendations based on genetic variants that were at the time already known to affect skin aging. Now, as you know, our company Nutrigenomix, really one of our goals is to be able to translate the findings from primary research into practice for being able to apply nutritional genomics findings in your practice so that you can help your patients and clients develop better health, better skin health, etc. And if you fast forward to today, having been aware of all of this research for some time, we now have finally been able to make genetic testing for personalized nutrition for skin health a reality. And this is what our genetic test for skin health looks like. This is the cover of the test. And over the next few slides, I'm going to show you some of the contents of the report that we provide and talk about some of the scientific studies that form the basis of the various sections of the report. So this is what the what a typical summary of results table would look like at the front of the report. And you can see that we have divided it into two sections, one covering aspects more related to skin aging, such as facial pigmented spots, loss of elasticity, which is related to wrinkles, antioxidant capacity, which is also related to wrinkles, sallow skin, etc. And on the other, we have another section that focuses more on nutrients that are known to impact skin health in some way. And in this overall report, we have a total of 13 genetic markers. 6 of those markers are included in the skin aging part of the report, and they, again, focus more specifically on genetic predisposition for certain aspects of skin health. And the remaining 7 markers are markers that affect the metabolism, absorption, distribution, etc., of these nutrients, such as vitamins A, C, D, zinc, etc., that again are known to impact skin health in some way. In the summary of results table, we also provide a very top level or high level summary of your client's results for the genetic test. So we'll tell them what the gene is, what the variant that they have is, what the risk variant would be, and the implications or recommendations based on that on their own result. I see that one of you raised your hand, at least, or several people may have raised their hands. Just to make things a little bit easier, if you don't mind typing your questions into the Q&A box, which you can access by clicking on the Q&A icon, then either members of my team or myself will be able to answer your question either during the presentation or at the end of the presentation when we'll have a few minutes. So I'd like to take the next few minutes to walk you through some of the research studies that form the basis of specific sections of the report and show you what those sections again look like. So when it comes to skin aging, facial pigmented spots are something that people are concerned about. And based on the research evidence available out there, it turns out that there is a genetic basis for facial pigmented spots. Now, this study that came out in 2015 in the in the Journal of Investigative Dermatology was really one of the largest genome-wide association studies to date on aspects of skin aging and skin health. And this particular genome-wide association study, or GWAS, examined about 3,000 European older adults and scanned their genome for genetic variants that might be associated with facial pigmented spots. And what they found was that there was one variant within the gene IRF4, which stands for interferon regulatory factor 4. And you can see the RS number, which is the specific or unique identifier for that specific variant. That really helped to explain a lot of the risk in the variation in risk of getting facial pigmented spots as people age. So what the researchers found was that each copy of the risk allele, which was the T allele, was associated with a nearly 25% increased risk in having pigmented spots. And so if a person had one copy of the risk allele, their risk would be about 25% higher. And if they had two copies of the risk allele, that would make their risk even greater. Now, as I mentioned, this study was conducted in European adults, but what's interesting to note is that within Europe, the main ethnic group really is Caucasians, but there's a lot of variation in skin color, even within Caucasians living in Europe. And the effects of this particular variant appear to be independent of skin color. So a person in, say, southern Spain who has fairly dark skin and carries the risk variant for IRF4 would be at the same level of risk of developing facial pigmented spots as someone from northern Scotland who has very fair skin, despite the fact that both people are considered, or both individuals are considered to be of European descent. So based on that research, we developed a section of our report that specifically focuses on a person's risk of developing facial pigmented spots. And this is what that section of the report looks like. It will give, it elaborates a little bit on the summary of results table that you saw a couple of slides ago, and tells the client what the risk is, what their specific risk is, what the risk variant is. It talks about the specific aspect of skin health that is the focus of that section of the report, in this case, facial pigmented spots, and how that genetic variant specifically affects that risk. And one thing that we also do that is provide the prevalence of the risk variant across different ethnic groups. And one thing that's interesting to note for this particular variant is that it is pretty common in Europeans. So about 1 in 5 people of European descent carry the risk variant. And it's also relatively common in people of Hispanic descent, with about 1 in 7 people carrying the risk variant. But it's pretty uncommon in people of African, East Asian, or South Asian descent. So we do try in the skin report to, and in our reports in general, to really identify the prevalence of the risk variant across ethnic groups. Now, having said that, if a person carries the risk variant, the effect is going to be, generally speaking, the same, regardless of that person's ethnicity. So say, for example, a person of African descent who carries the risk variant for a given genetic marker would have the same degree of risk as a person with European, who has European descent. It's just the prevalence that is different across ethnic groups, but the risk, if you carry the risk variant, is the same. So moving on to another aspect of skin aging that is impacted by genetics, that's antioxidant capacity. And I talked earlier about studies looking at dietary antioxidant capacity from the diet. But our bodies have an endogenous or internal defense mechanism, antioxidant defense mechanism to fight oxidative stress from the environment and from processes within our bodies that generate oxidative stress. And there's been some research to suggest that genetic variants within enzymes that are involved in our endogenous antioxidant system can impact a person's ability to fight pro-oxidants. So one enzyme that is a key player in our endogenous antioxidant defense system is superoxide dismutase, which is encoded by a gene called SOD2. And research shows that a variation within this gene, and you can see the specific RX number here, is associated with differences in the enzyme's activity, in the superoxide dismutase activity, so that people who have at least one copy of the T allele have a lower degree of enzymatic activity than individuals who carry 2 copies of the C allele. What this translates into is the superoxide dismutase enzyme is less active and therefore less effective at fighting, at engaging an antioxidant response against oxidative stress. There's another enzyme that is another important player in our endogenous defense mechanisms against oxidative stress, and that is NQO1, which stands which is involved in coenzyme Q10, and research has shown that variation in the NQO1 gene is again associated with different amounts of coenzyme Q10 present in the serum of different individuals, depending on their genotype. So individuals in this case who have the CC genotype have higher levels of coenzyme Q10 than those who carry a copy of the T allele, that's the risk allele. So that, again, these individuals who have the risk allele might be less able to, or might have less coenzyme Q10 to fight oxidative stress. So with that in mind, we developed the antioxidant capacity section of our report to include the information from both the SOT2 gene as well as the NQO1 gene. We developed an algorithm that considers a person's genetic risk based on both of these genes. And this is what the report looks like for the section. Once again, you can see that we talk about what antioxidant capacity is able to do for your skin. In this case, oxidative damage from UV exposure or from foods that we eat, etc., can basically affect the structural integrity of our skin and damage cells within the skin, so that people who have the risk variant are less able to mount a defense against these oxidative stressors, such as ultraviolet rays from the sun. And once again, you can see that the prevalence of the risk variant differs across ethnic groups, although in this case, it does seem to be more common within each ethnic group than the previous variant. So for example, it's present in about 50% of African people of African descent, people of European descent. It's present in about 2/3 of people of Hispanic or South Asian descent, and it's actually present in 9 out of 10 people of East Asian descent. So this is a genetic risk factor that seems to be much more prevalent in East Asians. So with that, moving on to the next section of the report, we developed a skin loss of elasticity section based on the research that I'm going to show you on this slide. So I want to first talk about the involvement of a specific enzyme called matrix metalloproteinase 1 in processes that are associated with photoaging or with skin aging after exposure to sunlight. This enzyme, which I'll refer to as MMP1, is involved in breaking down collagen. Now, collagen breaks down over time, over age, etc. But exposure to ultraviolet rays also promotes collagen degradation, and this MMP1 is responsible for breaking down collagen, specifically after exposure to UV light. And there's been research showing that a genetic variant within the MMP1 affects, again, the activity of the resulting enzyme. So this is in this case, this is not so much a single nucleotide polymorphism, which is the type of genetic variant that I have shown you in some of the earlier slides, but rather this is an insertion deletion polymorphism that results in one person having more copies of the allele than another person. So one person might have, specifically for this particular gene, the people who have the risk variant have 2 copies of the allele, whereas those who have the typical variant have 1 copy of the allele. And having the risk variant means that the MMP1 enzyme is transcribed a lot more rapidly, and this results in increased collagen degradation. Now, collagen is a really important protein when it comes to the structural integrity of the skin, and collagen breaking down as a result of excess exposure to UV light can result in wrinkles, fine lines, skin sagginess, etc. So with that in mind, this is what our report looks like for this section. And once again, you can see that we report on the gene, the specific marker, what the risk variant is, what the client specific variant or genotype is, and the implications of this for this particular client. So, and again, you can see that that the prevalence of the risk variant or risk genotype is different across ethnic groups. But again, if you carry the risk variant, it does not matter what ethnic group you happen to belong to. The effects of the risk variant are going to be the same. And for individuals who carry the risk variant, the recommendation might be to obviously to attempt to slow down the loss of elasticity by encouraging more moisturizing, decreasing sun exposure, applying sunscreen, etc. Now, we talked earlier about dietary AGEs, or advanced glycation end products, and there's also advanced glycation end products that get produced endogenously. But regardless of how you get AGEs inside your body, their effect on the skin is related to the fact that the sugars, which is really what AGEs are, attached to proteins and lipids that form part of the skin. And some of these proteins, such as collagen, such as elastin, when they have AGEs attached to them, they become more brittle, more prone to breakage, and therefore more likely to develop wrinkles and loss of elasticity. There is a specific gene that encodes an enzyme that breaks down AGEs, and that is the GLO1 gene, which encodes a glyoxylase. And as you can see from the research that was carried out by this specific group, genetic variants within GLO1 result in certain individuals having a lower degree of glyoxylase activity than others, so that they are less able to efficiently clear AGEs from the skin and from other tissues. And AGEs, parenthetically, I'll mention that AGEs not only affect skin health in that they can make the collagen and elastin more prone to breakage, but AGEs also increase inflammation and oxidative stress, which affects the skin, of course, but also affects many other processes in the body. So this is what the advanced glycation end products section of the report looks like. And again, reporting on the different types, on the different aspects of how the gene and genetic variant can affect a person's ability to clear advanced glycation end products, and again, reporting on the prevalence of the risk variant across ethnic groups. Now, this one is one that happens to be quite frequent regardless of the ethnic group. Now, again, we had talked about AGEs at the beginning, and we talked about them in the last slide again. So there's really two factors at play here. One, you can have genetic variants that affect your ability to clear AGEs, but also you can have genetic variants that affect your preference for certain foods that are higher or more likely to lead to AGE formation. And that's what this research focuses on. So this is work that came out of our founders lab about over a decade ago now. It's time flies. This came out of Ahmed El-Sohami's lab, and it was the work of one of his PhD students at the time. And it focused on genetic variation within a protein that senses glucose in the brain. And this is the GLUT2 protein. It's a type of transporter that brings glucose into tissues, including the brain. And what the results of this study showed was that individuals who carried the risk variant, which was the T allele, so individuals with the TT or CT genotype, consumed more sweet foods and more sucrose on a daily basis than individuals who did not carry the risk variant. Now, the result of consuming more sugars and more sucrose leads to the potential formation of increased formation of AGEs, and the more AGEs that the skin is exposed to, the more it's likely to manifest the signs of AGE damage through collagen and elastin breakage, inflammation, oxidation, etc. So now this part of the report focuses less so on the implications of the genetic variants for skin aging and more on, again, the nutrients that can affect or that can impact how a person's skin ages. So for this particular section of the report, we tell the individual their risk of having a preference for sweet foods that might lead to them consuming a diet high in AGEs, and what they can do about this, which normally would be for these individuals to be particularly mindful of the sources of carbohydrates that they consume to ensure that they are avoiding the more sugary foods and perhaps getting their sweet treats from fruits, etc., or perhaps non-nutritive sweeteners. And again, the prevalence of the risk variant across ethnic groups is shown, and it's pretty interesting to see that it ranges quite a bit from 3 out of 4 people of African ancestry, or 75% of people of African ancestry carrying the risk variant, versus about 1 in 30 people of East Asian ancestry carrying the risk variant. To give you another example of the sections of the report that focus on genetic variants affecting the metabolism of nutrients that impact skin health, I wanted to show you research that once again came out of our founders lab on how genetic variation impacts the metabolism of vitamin C. Now, vitamin C, as you know, is a really powerful dietary antioxidant. This research showed that there is a variant, once again, one of those insertion deletion type variants within the GSTT1 enzyme that determines a person's risk of having vitamin C deficiency. And what this study found was that specifically individuals who have the typical risk, so not the enhanced risk, but the typical risk variant, seem to be relatively able to maintain their vitamin C status, which is measured by ascorbic acid in the circulation, regardless of whether or not they consume the RDA for vitamin C. But individuals who have the risk variant have a greatly increased risk of being vitamin C deficient if they consume less than the RDA. And by the way, the reason for this is that GSCT1 essentially carries out the conversion of dehydroascorbic acid back into ascorbic acid. So those who have the risk variant are less able to reduce dehydroascorbic acid back into ascorbic acid. So in essence, these individuals are at much higher risk of having an insufficient or inadequate vitamin C status if they are not consuming at least the RDA for vitamin C. And again, this is what this section of the report looks like. And in this section, those individuals who are carriers of the risk variant are encouraged to seek out dietary sources of vitamin C every day to ensure that they are consuming the RDA. And obviously, vitamin C has important benefits for skin that are not just associated with its antioxidant activity, but also with the fact that vitamin C is involved in the production of collagen, which again is the main structural component of skin that gives skin tissue its elasticity. And well, in the interest of time, I will not walk you through some of the other nutrients that are part of the report, but just wanted to show you as a highlight that we include similar sections also based on research evidence for intake of vitamins A and D for skin health, as well as for intake of vitamin E, as well as zinc, which are also important for skin health. So with that, before we move on to the rest of the presentation, and we don't have very much left, so we will have time for questions, I believe. But I did want to mention that we have a special offer throughout the summer. It's going to end at the midnight on August 31st. And this is for your clients who have already had one of our earlier Nutrigenomix tests done. This would be somebody who had perhaps the 45 gene test done, or even our original 7 gene test all the way back in the day, or our celiac disease and gluten intolerance test. For these individuals who might be interested in upgrading to the new 70 gene test, we are offering a free skin health test. Again, this is happening until August 31st. So if you have any clients who have had one of our earlier tests who want to upgrade to the 70 gene test, we are offering a free skin health test as well. So with that, I want to give you just a brief reminder of some of the resources that we have available on our website for your practice to allow you to incorporate our genetic tests and help your clients with personalized recommendations for whatever goals they may have. This is what the practitioner account dashboard looks like. I believe that all of you who are attending today probably have a practitioner account with us, but if you do not, you can register for a free account with us on our website. And among other things, the dashboard will give you access to both training as well as marketing resources. You'll also be able to order tests, additional supplies, etc. If you click on the resources section of your dashboard, you'll be able to access everything from client consent forms to sample reports, marketing resources, etc., as well as frequently asked questions. And if you click on the education and training resources, you will be able to see our past webinars, which are under this webinar tile here. You'll be able to also register for upcoming webinars. And there's also a whole lot of other interesting and worthwhile stuff, we think, for your practice as well, such as our research publications, how to collect DNA samples, PowerPoint presentation templates in case you want to share some of our work or our services with your colleagues. There's also a Nutrigenomix training guide that we have developed, and this is a very comprehensive training guide. It has over 200 plus pages of content, and you can and it provides you with essentially everything that you need to know on the science of behind our genetic tests to be able to get you up and running with incorporating this tool into your practice. In addition, of course, we have the webinars that we have been offering pretty regularly for the past year. We give access to the publications that form the basis of the report. These are peer-reviewed publications, research publications on which the report is based. And we also provide you with support from our in-house dietitians. If you have any questions as you are offering these our tests or our services to your clients, you can always send us a quick email or chat with our in-house dietitians by phone or video conference. So with that, I am going to wrap up the content part of the presentation very shortly. I have some time for Q&A. If I'll see how many questions I'm able to answer over the next few minutes. If you have any other questions or would like to just contact me directly, my email address is bibiana@nutrigenomix.com. And of course, we also have our general inquiries email address, which is info@nutrigenomix.com. And so with that, I am going to go ahead and share and have a look at the Q&A box and see if I can answer some of the questions that that are available. All right, a question from Joanna. Is there anything in the skin report that addresses varicose veins or stretch marks? Unfortunately, no. At this point, this is certainly, an area that I think a lot of people who are concerned about their skin's appearance and also their skin's integrity are certainly concerned about. But at this point, we do not have sufficient evidence on the impact of genetics and diet on varicose veins as well as stretch marks. But as you may know, we are researchers and academics as well as wearing our industry hats. And we actively survey the literature for new findings. And it looks like there are no other questions at the moment. I will hold on for a couple of minutes. It looks like, let's see, does your diet plan also cover recipes for skincare? That's a good question, Alexandra. The diet plan doesn't specifically, we don't have a specific diet plan for skincare, but the nutrients that are included in the skincare report are also included in our general health and wellness reports, which you are able to develop a diet plan for. So if, for example, one of your clients is at risk of being vitamin C deficient, and you develop a diet plan for them that addresses that vitamin C deficiency for general health, it will also at the same time address their deficiency from the point of view of skincare and skin health. That's a great question. Thank you for that. Oh, wait. And of course, if you have other questions as we progress through the webinars, or as we move on to the rest of our day, please feel free to send us a note. It looks like my team did a really great job of answering questions throughout the presentation, and it seems like everyone is pretty quiet at the moment. This question from Susan. Do new clients and tests include the skin evaluation? So no, the offer for a free skin test is for previous clients who had the 45 gene test or the 7 gene test or the gluten tolerance test before. can a pregnant woman take the Nutrigenomix test? Yes, pregnant women can take the test. I would actually recommend the fertility test for those who are pregnant, because the fertility test specifically answers this fertility test specifically targets the nutrient requirements of women who are pregnant. So that would be my recommendation. It covers the same markers as our general health and wellness test, and it offers recommendations that are perhaps more tailored towards fertility, but certainly tailored for women who are pregnant. Okay, I think we are winding down with questions, so I think I will stop the webinar now. But thank you again so much for coming today, and thank you so much for your questions. And if you have again any other questions throughout after you digest this information, or if you are wondering after you've watched the video recording, please feel free to send us a note, and we will be happy to answer your questions via email. All right, with that, thank you so much, and have a wonderful rest of your day and week, and we look forward to hopefully seeing you in the next webinar. Take care, everyone.